So yes, I'm very happy that you have come to today's workshop, where we will tackle the topic of demonstrating the value of precision medicine to decision makers, global and local peer collaborations for advocacy. We will do so with different partners that are here today, and I will come to present them soon. I'm really glad that you chose this morning and this afternoon to be here all together, to come to the first session of this year's FT3 Access workshop series, where we're looking to collaboratively pave the way for a future where evidence-based precision medicine is accessible to all patients who could benefit from it. And in this workshop series, where we aim to advance collaboratively the efforts that are already being made for patient access to precision medicine, by sharing and helping you to discover how other PM champions make strides in advancing personalized value-based care. And we do that by providing a space for experts to share in keynote presentations about their activities and learnings in the past. At the same time, we will use this space to explore together new tools, resources, and different insights and learnings that can help us all enact systemic change for better patient access where we are. So overall, we hope that we together can enhance our capacity here to collectively enable personalized value-based care. And we will, along the year in the different sessions of this workshop series, focus on different topics that will revolve around demonstrating the value of precision medicine, leveraging different pathways to influence decision-making, and also learning about collection methodologies and packaging impactful evidence to enable that change. In today's session, we will learn about global and local peer collaborations and its potential to co-create more effective advocacy outcomes. And for that, we will hear of a great example between a global umbrella organization and a local organization in Mexico. And then we will also endeavor into a co-creation breakout session where we can all together identify the different value propositions for such collaborations, the needs and opportunities that you see, so that we can ultimately inform future global, local advocacy collaborations and campaigns with these learnings coming from you. So as I said, we will begin after this introduction with a keynote presentation on global to local peer collaborations for advocacy. There will also be a space for you to ask questions to our experts. Then we will hear a short presentation on the FT3 Access and Advocacy Roadmap, which is one tool that can be used to advance collaborative efforts for patient access to precision medicine. And then we will jump into the co-creation together, where we work on informing future global local advocacy collaborations. And ultimately, of course, we'll have a few key takeaways from each breakout groups, a teaser for next steps following this workshop and the workshop series as a whole. And then we also hope to get a little bit of insights from you as to your thoughts about the session. So it's my pleasure to moderate today's session and present to you Nicole Sheehan from the Global Colon Cancer Association and FT3's Executive Committee, who together with Francisco Fleidia from the Futere Foundation in Mexico will present on their collaboration in Mexico. Then Silvia Bornengo will present on behalf of FT3 on the Access and Advocacy Roadmap. And ultimately, we will all have the co-creation where we come together. So that being said, I'm excited for the presentations, and I will hand over to Nicole.
Thank you, Vincent. Next slide, please. So I'm really excited to be here today and to share with you, next slide, please, who the Global Colon Cancer Association is and our Transforming Policy Initiative. I will be brief. It's a pretty comprehensive program, but this is a means to introduce to you why we created the program, really focusing on the global and local partnership aspect. as well as what's next for the program. So very briefly, the Global Colon Cancer Association exists because, unfortunately, in today's day and age, where you live highly determines your ability to prevent or survive this disease. We have a very specific focus on supporting patient advocacy organizations in low and middle income countries, and we really believe that for such a preventable cancer that we really need to do better. So if you do represent an organization that supports colorectal cancer in one area or another, and you are not yet engaged with the Global Colon Cancer Association, I urge you to reach out to me. Next slide, please. So in looking at why we created the Transforming Policy Initiative, I really feel like the data here speaks for itself, looking at both the mortality, the incidence and mortality, as well as, unfortunately, the projections. And again, colorectal cancer is a very unique cancer. For so many cancers and diseases, we're looking for the disease. This is a cancer where you can actually largely prevent it through screening, diet, and exercise.
Not working.
And at this point, far too many people are suffering and dying from this disease. So again, data speaks for itself, but beyond that, I think the reason we created the program is that, one, we've seen that scorecards and policy initiatives have been very effective, particularly in the United States. And additionally, one of the top barriers that we hear from our member organizations, particularly in low and middle income countries, is the lack of data and the lack of having a program to be able to present to government. And so with these issues in mind, it was a pretty clear decision for us to go forward with the program. Next slide, please. So our policy scorecards are really the heart of this program, but it's just one aspect. So we'll show an example in just a little bit. It is neat to be able to see and to compare countries and to be able to assign a score, but without an activation program and a plan in place and local partners such as Futehe, which you will hear from Francisco in just a few minutes, it's nothing. Otherwise, it's just a pretty designed program that has no impact. So with that, please keep that in mind, that this is just one aspect of it, and it really requires a very comprehensive program to be able to see impact. So this here identifies, what the scorecards are, the main purpose of it, and I just want to point out a few things. I won't read through the slides, but that the policy scorecards, this is not a precision medicine initiative. That is a very important part of the program, but it is necessary that you build the foundation and highlight all aspects of a disease, from screening, treatment, end of life, financial aspects. It cannot be looked at in a vacuum. Otherwise, you will not be successful in moving forward. And also, this is really just a moment in time. These scorecards are meant to be able to provide data that can then be measured, but we really need to keep in mind that it is nearly impossible to gather everything, and it is publicly available data. I'll talk about this in just a moment, but that's why the validation is so impactful. And we certainly did see, particularly in Mexico, that what's publicly available as far as data does not necessarily translate in terms of what's actually happening in the community. Next slide, please. So the development process, as I think I mentioned, this is a pretty comprehensive program. It is also multi-stakeholder, and it is pretty resource heavy. A lot of time is needed. The partners that we engage with, it's not simply a sign off to say, okay, we looked at this, everything looks good. You really have to dig in and get under the hood, so to speak. So anybody who's looking at developing a program such as this, just urge you to, similar to building or doing home construction, it will cost at least twice as much and take at least twice as long to develop. Next slide, please. These are the policy action areas that we've looked at. And I think one of the kind of hardest pieces to really kind of process for us is that we're looking to see if the programs exist. We are not evaluating how well we think that the countries are doing with the programs. It's, again, you would need it to be a tool that is dynamic and updated, continually, to be able to do that. And the other aspect is that with governments changing, and Francisco will speak to this, but this is highly personal, right? So when you're going to government and you're talking about this is the grade we've assigned, particularly when we show our regional score cards, and this is how the country right next to you is doing, people will certainly take this possibly as, an attack on the work that they've been doing or the lack thereof in many cases. But we do know that systems need to be put in place and the infrastructure needs to be there. But certainly that is a big aspect, and that's again where the country data validation really comes into place. Next slide, please. So here's an example. I have two different examples up here. So here we have South Africa. This is an individual scorecard where you can see using a little bit of a stoplight model in terms of the red, yellow, and green. We do assign an overall score. I'm sad to say that even though this is an incredibly low score, South Africa is not our lowest scoring country. India, actually, we just developed that and has even lower score. And what I think we also have here listed the countries that we've developed scorecards for. In the example below, we have the regional scorecards, which we're able to develop once we get enough countries to be able to show how the comparison works and to really highlight. I think that it's important to keep in mind that a little bit of friendly competition can be incredibly effective. The concept behind the work that we've done here was through the success that we found in the United States when it came to getting colorectal cancer screenings covered state by state. And to be able to show a neighboring state, or in this case, a neighboring country, has a much higher or lower score certainly drives people to want to do better. For many countries, having similar challenges in terms of geographic or other issues, it really drives it home to show and to even be able to see, with the different, colors. And also I want to highlight, forgive me, I did not share, but our partner here is Policy Wisdom, and they have developed these scorecards in several different disease areas. They have experts that are in countries all over the world that we have worked with. I'm always curious to talk to them about the different scorecards that they have developed. And it's hard to do apples to apples comparisons because we have made this fit for colorectal cancer. It really lines the journey from start to finish, again, with colorectal cancer being a unique disease in that it is highly preventable. Next slide, please. Okay, and so with that, I will thank you. I will be turning it over. Thanks, Vincent. I'll be turning it over to Francisco in just a minute, but I think just before I do that, I wanted to highlight that, again, us creating these scorecards without partners like Futehe, it's meaningless. It's purely would be an exercise that goes nowhere. So we thank Francisco and Futehe and all of the partners that he's brought to the table to help us validate and really, more importantly, to develop a program and a plan going forward. One of the things that I've seen that's actually been incredibly valuable with the local partnership is that we are giving stakeholders, whether they're currently involved with the local patient advocacy organization or their prospects, but we're giving them a very meaningful way to contribute to the cause and to take ownership. And so that's been very exciting to see. And with that, I will turn it over to Francisco.
Thank you, Nicole. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today. Thank you, Vincent, and all the team for the invitation. And as just Nicole mentioned it, I want to show you how we are working and how all these alliances that we have managed or have been managing to handle with international organizations and also these stakeholders, as they were mentioned here in Mexico, it's for us, it's like the key, to open every doors that we need in order to do this advocacy, to merge into policy practices and change all the things that are going around Mexico. So if we can, let's skip this one, to go directly to the points that I want to mention. So a little bit of background of FUTEGE on who we are. FUTEGE, it's, the acronym for Fundación Fomento de Desarrollo Teresa de Jesús, FUTEGE, that we are a nonprofit organization established since 1991. And our primary interest is focused in the implementation of prevention programs and timely detection, as well as comprehensive treatment and support of patients with limited resources who suffer from colorectal and gastric cancer. In addition, to promote a culture of prevention and timely detection to these types of disease through specific programs, because we are really, really convinced that these are the means and how we can, give a battle to this disease that it's colorectal and gastric cancer. So our mission has led us to contribute to implement or to better or improve of health, poverty, and development problems here in Mexico, and being the only NGO in Mexico that it's dedicated to comprehensively support colorectal and gastric cancer. We are driven by our goals that are generosity, solidarity, sensitivity, and responsibility, which have been the key piece of continuous efforts and the things that we make every day. And with this is what we have been, going so many places now because of these international alliances and, taking our programs and all the things that we are really, really convinced, and not because these thoughts that we have, it's because what we have been delivering, it is taking us to other, territories. So next slide, please. So in our beginnings, we were dedicated to fund assistance and support programs and communities. And since 2002, we started to do things with cancer because of gastric cancer and a tumor that our actual president was diagnosed with, and was the daughter of our former and past president and founder of FUTEGE, that he was also in 2006, he was diagnosed with breast cancer, that, it's not that common in the male population. So since 2006, they decided to put all the efforts, all the money, and everything dedicated to cancer. So from there, this big and large journey on cancer has started. And now to see how's the panorama in Mexico about cancer, please can you go to the next slide. So here are the numbers. This is the information from GloboCan 2022, that now in Mexico the colorectal cancer is the third most common cancer, and unfortunately is the #1 killing cancer in Mexico. Can we go to the next one, please? So in general numbers, in Mexico every year there are more than 200,000 more patients diagnosed with cancer. From those, more than 16,000 are diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So this colorectal cancer has doubled the number of cases in the past 10 years. And so today we have 22 daily deaths in Mexico from colorectal cancer. That's 8,283 deaths per year. So you can see that it's almost 60% of the cases, so about 50-something% that died from the ones that are diagnosed. And most of it's because most of the patients are late detected. 80% of the patients have no early detection or early diagnosis, and because of the health system in Mexico, that it's a very complicated health system. So we are not able to have these early diagnosis, and people are getting in late stages. Next slide, please. So from precision medicine here in Mexico, in order to address a strategic solution to the needs presented by various associations and patients groups here in LATAM, and also with the alliance of some pharmaceutical companies, also working with policy wisdom and several stakeholders. We have now recently, on the past 10th of January, we have launched this campaign that is, to inform population in Mexico that the precision medicine exists. This, we are doing it in several countries as Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica. And we have joined forces to launch these campaigns to raise the awareness of the importance of precision medicine. There, to go, first to the population, that they can be, aware that this exists, that there is some access. We're starting here in Mexico with precision medicine, but there can be access for some types of cancers. And so we are starting this campaign, with all this information. Please go to the next one. These are some examples, on our websites and the websites of the other NGOs participating, with information, with how to access, what is it, how to get to know more about precision medicine. So with this, we are, first giving this part of education, then we're going to go with, all the health community, with medical associations, to give this awareness also to them. And then finally, we're going to go to the decision makers, so they can be, because they're the ones that are going to put like in the budget, so people can get access to. It's the most important part, the access to all these types of treatments. The next one, please. Okay, so these national, international alliances, in Mexico, we have several of them, but going to the international, we are part of the UICC. We are UICC members, also members of the Global Colon Cancer Associations, of the World Patient Alliance, and we have this really tight relationship with Digestive Cancers Europe. Also, the next one, please. We are members of the Global Compact. So we are aligned to the SDGs of the United Nations and working in these 5 SDGs, and particularly number 17, that it's these alliances to aim all the goals of our objectives. We are working, very, very hard on it. And these have been taking us, to other level, so we can, learn from others in different continents, in different countries, and also to share what we have been accomplishing in Mexico and delivering, to the people here in Mexico, and now also into other countries. Next one, please. So in these international participations, we can highlight our relation and active participation with these international organizations, which has taken us to other level and opened these opportunities to link us with new organizations. This has allowed us to learn what it's being done in other countries and regions, and at the same time open spaces to take our programs and models of care, across borders. So we participated in DUFAT 2024 last year, and then we went to the POF last year. We were really, really happy to be there and can put into the table what we have been accomplishing. Then we were at the 5th Global Colon Cancer Congress and the Safe for World Patients Conference from the WPA last October in Cape Town in South Africa. and me assisting as a speaker and delivering these examples of good practices and our colorectal cancer screening program that has been very, very successful here in Mexico, and this with alliances with really important organizations and also institutions here in Mexico. The next one is that I just came, 2 weeks ago, I was in also again at Dubai 2025 in Dubai, also talking about these programs and these really strengthen, these relationships and all the things that we have been, working on this past year. The next one, please. So another very important part is the importance of these local to global relationships. As a part of these partnerships strategies from FUTEGE and participating with organized events by local agencies of government, etc., we have been managing to work with the most important public hospitals in Mexico, from the health system in Mexico, that it's the National Institute of Cancer. We have the National Institute for Metrology, Hospital Juarez, and different hospitals. The largest ones, and the ones that are, like taking care of most of the patients, and also with the government going to the Senate and also to the House of Representatives, and these international alliances that I have just mentioned, and also working with companies as, for example, Axios, or with pharmaceutical companies like Pfizer, Roche, and MSD, Teva, and others that have been, supporting part of our programs. So these have been bringing us, more opportunities to grow our programs and to take them out of Mexico City. We are in Mexico City, and these have been bringing us the opportunity to take also into the country our programs in other states. The next one, please. So transforming these politics of this initiative and about what we have been doing with the government. In March of 2017, we submitted to the Senate the draft decree of the initiative of the creation of March 21st, the 31st of each year as a National Day Against Colorectal Cancer. And we push it into the Senate, then to the House of Representatives. And in the September of 2019, it was approved. It was published. So since then, we have a National Day Against Colorectal Cancer. This was a really, really important thing for us and for Mexico, being the first #1 killing cancer in Mexico. The next one, please. We have also managed to do different forums at the Senate. This one that I show you, Nicole was here in Mexico as Sorana Maravik from DICE. They were both here in Mexico. They had the chance to talk on the Senate of Mexico, and also with all these different stakeholders, from the public institutions, from the government, that we're talking about, these programs for early detection, access, and all the timely detection also, and we are also members of the Civil Society Working Committee that are promoting a comprehensive cancer care in Mexico. This is entitled for the General Cancer Law in Mexico that we have been, pushing for almost 3 years now. And now we have to change it for a comprehensive cancer care in Mexico, so it can be included in the, it's in the general health law in Mexico. This cancer program could be included because there's a lack of programs in Mexico of laws or things about cancer and all around. So the next one, please. So there's more examples, from public hospitals, and mainly public hospitals in the Senate, and these are just for an example of what we have been doing, where we have been going through, in order to accomplish of these goals and all these things about advocacy, and also to change or try to implement new laws or new like public policies here in Mexico. The next one, please.
I think this was the last slide, Francisco.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you so much both for the presentations. I will stop sharing for a moment, and I would like to open up the floor for Q&A. So if you have questions for either Nicole or Francisco, please raise your hand or write them in the chat. That would be appreciated. And maybe we can start with one question for the both of you, to share from your perspectives what you believe were the most valuable lessons from the collaboration that you have been leading between GCCA and FUTEGE in Mexico.
Sure, I'll just share that, you know, if this was easy, it would have been done before. You know, it's like, I think a lot of lawmakers, they have good intents. It's just that it is really challenging, particularly when you're looking at countries where they're not in a position to allocate a large number of dollars. The other thing that I'll just relate back to the precision medicine is that we are continually looking for ways to share the value of precision medicine, and we know that this is expensive. I think that this is where we always talk about the importance of data, but also pairing that with patient stories. We tend to see that when lawmakers or healthcare providers are personally impacted by a disease and they see the promise of you know, personalized medicine or clinical trials, or you know, that they become, you know, awakened and enlightened to how important it is. We have to figure out how we can best tell that story, because it is a very big ask and it is very challenging.
Yeah, and for us, it have been, you know, it's been, I don't know, Nicole, it's about 1 year and a few months that we have been working together. So for us, it have been really, really helpful, you know, because through the GCCA, we knew about these scorecards, and we have been, you know, diving into them to see how they are compared to the actual you know, situation in Mexico, and how can this could be, you know, up to date. And also we have been learning of all these journeys that we have been getting in together in participation in international forums and everything. We have been learning a lot of how to do more things in order to be you know, like completed here in Mexico, even though the you know, all the things that we have to in front of us, that it's, you know, these things with the government, with the health system, and all these barriers that we are, you know, like looking how we can go through them and work with them, because we are convinced, you know, that the NGOs like governed all the government, and with you know, these private companies that working all together, it's the only way that we're going to manage to accomplish all the things that we want to do. So we have been learning a lot of things by the GCCA, and we have been participating in lots of forums, and now we have, you know, like a chat and worldwide with all the participants of these forums that we have been attending, and to give, you know, like continuously, you know, reviewing all the work that we have been doing, and also to encourage for those who are you know, facing the problems that we have already, you know, went through, to show them how to do it, and also to learn from the ones that are, you know, many steps ahead of us.
Thank you so much, Nicole and Francisco. I really like how, you know, there's, so to say, cross-fertilization from global to local and local back to global, and how these collaborations also offer new opportunities and open eyes across different stakeholder groups. Is there anyone else that has a question for either Nicole or Francisco?
I have a quick question, and it's related to something I think that that Nicole said, is that there's a political aspect in that some of the stakeholders that you're interacting with may actually be somewhat responsible for the state of precision medicine. Let's use that as part of the example. How do you bridge that gap? How do we get them to be allies as opposed to feel defensive about the state that they're in?
It's tough. It's really tough. And actually, I think, last year when we had the event at the Senate in Mexico, there was a change in power was coming. And, in Mexico, you have a 6-year, the power is happening for 6 years. It was so much of it was kind of ceremonial. But it was so important to keep that continuity where we knew that we were not going to be introducing, laws at that point. And in fact, there was even a little bit of concern around aligning ourselves by having that. What my belief was that it was important to keep the continuity of hosting these events with the Senate. I think it also underscores, Futehe's ability to be focused on the patients and not aligned with a political party. I think that was really key as well. But I think sometimes, depending, you have to kind of just look and see what is the best time where we can make this case.
Thanks, Nicole.
Excellent question. Great answer. Barry, you have your hand up.
Yeah. So excellent presentation, and congratulations on this great work. Especially that scorecard, very impressive, but of course very hard to keep up to date. I was very impressed to see that some of the countries like Colombia had very high score on guidelines and so forth. So actually my question is a couple of parts to it. Just bearing in mind that they're in countries like Brazil, there is private healthcare plus the public system, so large differences between the two, and that's a very tough bridge to gap to bridge, I should say. But what I was thinking is actually more on the precision medicine side, rather than the profiling side, and that is how to bridge that gap between actually finding those mutations by doing the molecular profiling and actually gaining access to those precision medicine drugs. So in Mexico, Francesco, just by way of example, or any other countries that you're familiar with, do you find that you may have success in obtaining the profiling, but then getting the drugs reimbursed is an even bigger challenge? So just wondering how you're thinking of them both together, so to speak.
Do you want to answer first, Nicole?
Sure. I'll just make the point that one, I think, having guidelines is one aspect, but actually following them is a completely different story. You have to have the guidelines, but it does not mean, it can sometimes paint a little bit of a rosier picture than it truly is. When it comes also to the looking at particular biomarkers, I mean, we're so far behind, in so many countries to even having any access, to some of the kind of basic, biomarkers that should be tested, in colorectal cancer. I was really taken back in Mexico last year when having conversations with the healthcare providers, and they said they were talking about the emotional stress that this brings because they have such limited, where there is access, it is so limited that they're having to pick and choose which patients, are even getting the testing. And it's very uncomfortable. They feel like they're, acting like God. So I think we have a really far way to go. I think that we look at it with the concept that any areas where we can move forward is going to advance, and also think that it's critical to look across diseases. We've seen in Brazil some success in lung cancer. So, looking to see, are there other disease states that we can also partner with? Because, for us to be successful in moving forward precision medicine in colorectal cancer, I mean, we want to also see this happening for other cancers where precision medicine has been incredibly valuable.
Yes, and adding to this, with this fragmented system that we have in Mexico, health system that we have in Mexico, and also that no all the cancers, for example, are able to have access to precision medicine. And one of the important things that you mentioned was this part of the biomarkers and everything. What is covered by the private, insurance companies and whatsoever. They are most working in lung cancer, breast cancer, or cervix cancer. There's a lack of things that they're doing in colorectal cancer. And by the public system, there are these barriers of all the way that they can or they are able, because there are not much companies or laboratories that can take all these biomarkers and everything. So most of the time there are like private companies that take the samples, they have to send it to the US so they can have the results to see if the person is going to be able or it's suitable, for a precision medicine treatment and all these new therapies. So it's a little bit complicated, but what we are working on is try to go, because we have the National Institute of Genomics here in Mexico. They have really, really good equipment, and they have, been working in a lot of things, but also the access is so complicated that people have to go through these private companies. So it's more expensive, to see all these biomarkers and to get the access and everything. If we put it on a on a straight line, everything goes to the time that it's going to be taking to have the samples, send it to the US, come back, and it's one of the barriers that we have in Mexico. This time or the access that is referred to the time of this diagnosis, to the access to also the treatments. Talking about precision medicine, or also about the regular treatments, chenos, that there is also a lack of uh, medicines in the public sector. We're running out of medicines, so it's really, really complicated. And there's just a few people or persons that have, the luck to be diagnosed in early stages and to have access to treatments.
I think this is also a fantastic moment to stress something both of you, Francisco and Nicole, emphasized when we were speaking about having this workshop, that the collaboration you have started is still at the beginning, and is a long-term project to make sure that these various pieces can be addressed. Thank you for the questions and the answers. If something else comes up, please use the chat to share your questions. I will now hand the floor over to Silvia so that we can hear about one of the tools that FD3 is developing to support global local advocacy collaborations.
Thank you so much, Vincent. And thank you so much, both Francisco and Nicole. I was actually trying to put down in my notebook a little bit of the key takeaways that you guys were sharing with us. And I think this will help a little bit to contextualize what are the access and advocacy roadmaps. So the access and advocacy roadmaps are actually a guidance that can serve any advocates or precision medicine champion out there to make it easier to advocate. As Nicole was saying before, it's not easy, but this is a very ambitious group. I think in the FD3 community, patient advocacy community as a whole, we are ambitious. So the idea is to try to bring these learnings together that you were talking about, for example, how to bring the right evidence or how to find the right timing to bring certain, points forward. So this is what we try to do with the access and advocacy roadmaps. It's really about bringing these learnings and collective intelligence and expertise together to try to draft this type of guidance so that a patient advocate doesn't necessarily need to start from scratch. So here we have put together a few of the needs that we heard of before, and that go back to what Nicole and Francisco were sharing. So it's really about understanding the access condition in a system, but also how ready is your health system to actually implement precision medicine, and then who do you need to talk to if you want to make a change in your system. So if you can go to the next slide, Vincent. we are trying to collect over time best practices like the one that Nicole and Francisco just shared with us to build this guidance. The guidance has these 5 steps, and these 5 steps really have the objective to make it easier to understand what the gaps are in a system, but then also to do something about it. And if I can go in a few slides, I'm going to drive you through these 5 steps. So if you can go to the next slide, the first step is really around understanding what's accessible now in a specific system. So it helps in guiding questions, in thinking about specific dimensions that you need to look at to understand, you know, in my country, what's accessible for this disease. This is a tool that has been co-created by the FT3 community. It has been tested and was built on best practice resources. After you understand the access situation in a given country, in step 2, the idea is actually to assess the readiness, as I was saying before, of your health system to implement precision medicine. If you remember, Nicole was sharing the policy scorecards. Well, we use that as a best practice along with another publication to actually create this type of guidance. So the idea is to say, okay, let's help those out there that might not have the GCCA of this world, helping them to do this, to actually have something that they can start with. So they don't need to start from scratch. So this is what we have worked on with this group last year, and that we actually want to start piloting this year. After you know these 2 type of information, which I know it would take a long time, as Nicole was saying, but the idea is to move farther. So it's not about just understanding what doesn't work today, but it's also about helping on, you know, how do we identify the right people you need to talk to, and how do you bring the right evidence? So Nicole was saying, you know, if you want to talk to a policymaker and so on, maybe you want to bring patient stories. So can we really use the expertise that we have in this group to make it easier to understand how to talk to decision makers, and also how to bring the right evidence and identify the right type of evidence to bring. So this is currently being in co-creation. It's very ambitious, I know. Let's not be scared about that. But this is what we hope to do in upcoming months together. And after this, the idea, actually here I can actually drive you through this. So the idea, again, going from understanding that there is a gap, then you understand, okay, who are the key decision-making bodies that you need to advocate for a certain gap. And then the idea is to really identify the most relevant type of evidence and, you know, collection methodologies that you can use to be successful. So here we also aim through this module actually to bring best practice example of how evidence has been utilized in the past by others. So really to try to be as concrete as possible in this type of guidance. Moving forward, the idea is step 5 is, of course, to bring it all together. So this is really, we haven't started with this, but we know after you do the analysis, you understand the gap, you know which evidence you need to bring to who, we really need to bring it all together. So here it would really be about how can we leverage each other's knowledge to do advocacy and bringing it to life in the best way possible. So this is a little bit the reason why we are here as a community is to try to actually continue this guidance together, co-create it further, but also learn from each other and have more of these moments like today where we can hear from people that have done it in practice and do it in practice every day. You know, what works, what are the things that, although we know one context is different to another, we still know that there are elements that are best practices across. We don't always need to necessarily reinvent the wheel. So if we can move to the next slide, I will actually hand it over to Vincent to drive us into the activity today so that we can bring all of this together and really help in our next steps.
Thank you, Silvia, and to everyone, if you're interested in co-creating this advocacy roadmap further with us and utilizing and testing it in your context, don't hesitate and don't wait to reach out to us so we can make it happen together. So for the breakout groups, we will separate in 3 different groups, and you will have a free choice of which topic you want to discuss. As I said at the beginning of the workshop, we want to identify specific needs and opportunities to inform future global and local advocacy campaigns and collaborations. And for that, we will focus in one group on the concrete value propositions from both global and local perspectives of those collaborative global to local campaigns and activities. In the second group, we will look at addressing global challenges in different contexts. So Nicole will be there as the sitting expert to support us in understanding what exactly is needed and what are the benefits of addressing this common challenges in different country contexts. And then finally, in the third group, with Francisco as our sitting expert, we'll talk about addressing local challenges with global insights and discovering more closely how the local context can benefit from global insights and what that can also feed back into the global level. So on the top right, you see a little picture. I will now stop sharing, and you will have to find the breakout room button on your Zoom screen. And then you should be able to assign yourselves to room 1, room 2, or room 3. And I'd encourage you to do that.
You might need to open the breakouts. I don't see it. Okay, perfect. Now I can see the button. Perfect.
See you on the other side. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the main room with a small delay and due to some technical issues on my side. I'm really happy how the breakout group on my side went, and I hope it was the same on your side. I see that our group has been diminished a little bit from when we broke out into the groups. Trying to find the slides.
I see my group.
So
Sorry for the cutoff latest moment, but we had a great discussion.
that's fantastic, and yeah, I'm sorry for cutting in to that discussion with bringing us back to the room. I see that we will that we are running out of time. So while we had planned for a short reporting back, I think that it would be best to leave that for a follow-up. And I just want to hear from you maybe quickly to see whether the things that you've heard, both from the presentations, but also in the breakout groups, how interesting they were for you, how you can potentially utilize them in your own work, and how useful that was and enriched you for your work in your own context. So I've started a little poll where you can select on a scale, and then there's also a second question when you scroll down where you can actually give us a tip or a topic for an upcoming session to improve on what has happened today. So let you know that, and in the meantime, I will also let you know that, of course, all the insights you have shared today, they will not remain in this conversation, but we will take them. We will use them to inform the different projects that FT3 is leading on the value of precision medicine, on patient experience data in precision medicine, and on the access and advocacy piece, including the roadmap. We will share all those insights with you in a follow-up, make sure that you can benefit from them as well. And then I encourage you to let us know other topics that you'd like to cover in these type of workshops. And I'm happy to keep you all informed on our next workshop session upcoming in Q2 this year, where we will look into industry patient collaborations for improved late-stage HTA submissions, with a special focus on the evidence required to demonstrate the value that the new technologies bring to the health systems. So with that, I really appreciate that you have come and participated so lively, and also that for you who are still here have stayed until the very end and even beyond the time.
Nice to see everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Much.
Thank you.
Hello,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.